Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. At one point, you have to face reality. Otherwise, you're going to go to your own self-destruction. Therefore, you have to, at one point, realize that you went too far, or maybe the policies you implemented are not yielding the expected consequences or the profits that you hoped for. So the same thing with the guys in NATO and in the European Union, United States of America, regarding the Ukraine war. They have to assess at one point or determine or make a decision. Are we going to go all in, or are we going to continue this perpetual war in Ukraine, getting fat some of our sponsors or profiteers? Now, during all these 3 years and a half with the garbage in Ukraine, you have various personalities. I don't like to call them really leaders, because I don't think they are leaders, because they are elected officials, therefore they are public servants. They serve us. But we have presidents, prime ministers, foreign ministers, defense ministers, who come out and make statements, and sometimes they say it's black, after a few months is white, regarding what they should do in Ukraine. This case right now that I'm going to discuss for you is Mr. Petr Pavel. He is the president of the Czech Republic. He became president in 2023, I think on the 9th of March, 9th of March, not May. May is the whatever. So he became the president. He was elected. He was a former NATO general. Whenever I see a general coming from NATO becoming the president of the country, that's bad. Because he must have the military obviously under control, and is probably at the orders of his former bosses, official bosses. So Mr. Petr Pavel came and said at first, after he got elected, I don't think he was even sworn in, when he started to make draw some logical conclusions on what's going on in Ukraine. And he said that we can't win in Ukraine. Something like that. The Russians cannot lose. Maybe we should talk to the Russians. Something that I would say decent, common sense, I would go and claim. And after he got sworn in, he started parroting the party line. We have to defeat Russia. Russia will attack NATO. We have to help poor Zelensky. Zelensky is our savior. And all the crap these guys have been pouring on us in at least 2 years and a half. If you calculate the previous years, before the war started, they were preparing us for this. So now he comes and says, he becomes logical again. And I wonder why. Here is what he says. According to Russia Today, Ukraine must accept territorial losses to survive. NATO states presidents. The West's main goal is to ensure that the country remains independent. Czech leader Petr Pavel has said. What are you talking about? What do you mean now the main goal is to make sure that the country remains independent? First, since when the West owes Ukraine anything? Why Ukraine became the West's baby? I wonder why. Is there any connection special between the United States of America and the Jewish state? Our special relationship? That means they're fucking us? Is that? Since when? So from the get-go, Mr. Petr Pavel starts from way ahead of where the issue is. We have to. No, we don't have to. Main goal. Why is it the main goal? The main goal is the same. The Russians will attack us. We need a buffer zone, supposedly. That tells me defensive thinking, not offensive thinking. Because offensive thinking would be, we will destroy Russia as we thought we will, and we have been working on that. But he's not saying that. He says, now, pick up your pieces and leave, or do whatever you can do. It's not like going and destroying. It's like, oh my God, at least we don't die. We might have an arm amputated, a leg amputated, a cock amputated, but nevertheless, we're still alive. We're still alive. So this is Petr Pavel. Why is he saying that? Let's read. Maybe it has a certain context into all he says. Ukraine does not have enough strength. It didn't have from the very beginning. You must know that as a general. I don't have a good, just so you know, look on generals. As a general statement. Ukraine does not have enough strength to retake its former territories in the near term without devastating losses and must therefore prioritize its own survival as a state. Well, it did not have any power, strength on its own, Mr. Petr Pavel, to start with, without NATO. Pavel, a former NATO military committee chair and longtime supporter of Ukraine, who believes the country should join the US-led bloc, notwithstanding its, and I'm quoting, temporary borders, made the remarks in a BBC interview on Monday. I suspect on Tuesday he's going to come with a different take after he's called by his advisors. You know what I mean. Despite its Western backing, Kiev, and I'm quoting, is not in a position to liberate occupied territories in a short time frame without a significant cost to lives. Whose lives? Ukrainian lives, obviously, right? And I'm quoting, we. And I like when I say we, always ask who's we or us or, ask who's we. We want them to survive. Well, who got them to a survival mode, Mr. Petr Pavel? I would claim that you did. You did by the advancement and expansion of NATO since 1991, after NATO broke its promise. That's the first one. Second, you destroyed NATO, United States of America, destroyed Ukraine's neutrality since 1994 Budapest Memorandum, if you remember. They said Ukraine will be part of NATO, which is not neutral anymore. Then someone helped the traitors, that's how they're called, traitors in Ukraine overthrow a legitimate, democratically elected government in Ukraine. And that's again you. So you created the problem. So we were not going to now ensure the survival. It's survival because the other guys that you tried to defeat, they're defeating you. So now you're taking the last straw, which is at least we're going to stay alive. That's all you got now. Mr. Petr Pavel. Right here, we want. Who cares what you want? Did you ask the Russians? And if not, why not? West is further from Ukraine than Russia. Then to survive as an independent sovereign country. It was never this problem. Ever. Even with the attack of the Russian troops in Ukraine, it was never this issue. If the cost is to accept that part of the territory will be temporarily occupied, then so be it. Alright, so that means you are losing. Pavel has also said military force alone will not end the conflict and called on the West. Who's West? What's the West? To rely on economic and political tools. This war cannot be won on battlefield. Thank you very much. Now you're talking after all this defeating of the Russians. And I believe that it is clearly in the interest of both sides of the Atlantic to exert much greater economic pressure on Russia, because that's the set of measures that doesn't kill, but it's very powerful when it comes to convincing power. Let me tell you, Mr. Pavel, something maybe you forgot. Maybe you forgot. Those economic sanctions do not kill, you say? Okay. Now, that's why I don't like generals in general, because they are, first, come from an environment of following orders. That means they cannot walk outside of the box, of someone else's box, for about, 30 years. And after 30 years, they become generals. They should, not after 15 years. If you become a general at 40, we have a problem. You have a problem. I don't think you are mature enough to be a general at 40, just me. Now, I understand that Napoleon was a general at, 24 or something, or some grenadier general, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I understand that, and others. But those were different than these guys right now. Okay, let's start with that one. So, Mr. Pavel definitely forgets about the United States of America's sanctions imposed on Iraq. He's old enough, he's born in 61. His Wikipedia page, I think, states, let me pull it out for you right here. So, 61. There is Peter Pavel, took office in March 9th, 2023. So Mr. Peter Pavel must know, has been alive, has been in the military, maybe even participated in the attack of the NATO countries on Iraq. Maybe, I don't know. So he must know that the Americans impose killing sanctions, killing, not the euphemistic killing sanctions on the Iraqi people, nation. And according to the United Nations data and estimates, about 500,000. Now, I'm not saying 50,000, it's 500,000 Iraqi children perished because of the American imposed sanctions on Iraq, a population of 24 million people at that time, or around that, 24 million. So, Mr. Peter Pavel, you are either an imbecile or you're a weasel. You're a weasel because you know it, but you say it. And an imbecile is because probably you don't know it and you say it because you don't know it. Now, you should know that. You should know that. So, there you go, Mr. General. So, they don't kill, he says. I give you only one example. I can give you, if you want, Libya and many others in the same respect. And Cuba, I can give you Cuba. This is what he says, right? Oh my God. All right here. Set of measures that doesn't kill. Last week, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow's grown accusation to Western sanctions were first introduced in 2014 after the start of the Ukrainian crisis. So, you had 3 years and a half. You imposed sanctions, about 18 round of sanctions. Russia is about under, I can't remember, like 16 or 15 or 18,000 sanctions. I think it's even more sanctions than Cuba or Iran. And it did not collapse. On the contrary. And it has a surplus versus the Western Europe economies that are fucking themselves. Now, it doesn't mean you should not try, but until when? Until you have your population being dead? You see those guys are not cracking? I know Petr Pavel lives very nicely, but the rest of the population? Because remember, imposing sanctions on Russia means imposing sanctions on you as well, like energy sanctions. That means your production costs will be greater because the energy is going to skyrocket. Why? Because you're going to buy, for instance, the American liquefied natural gas at premium price. So not only you destroy your country for Ukraine, supposedly, to destroy Russia, which shows no signs of being destroyed. Now, let me show you another thing here. I made this video a long time ago, right there, a long time ago. And I said, this is what he said at that time. The same guy, Peter Pavel. Ukraine can't start counteroffensive. Czech president predicts decrease in West support for Ukraine. This was the time. So this video was made in March 27, 2023. He assumed office in March 9th, 2023. As I said, he was still kind of logical by then. And he was told, what are you talking about? And he switched 180 or maybe 360 as Miss Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister of Germany, said. Putin did a 360. You mean like that? Remember that she was the foreign minister. Now, it's true. We sometimes make mistakes. We think of something and we say something else. But she never came back to say, or nobody says, hey, mademoiselle or Fräulein, are you an imbecile? Yeah. All right, my friends, so here it is. They have to accept that. So I tried and I didn't succeed. The consequences are what? Let's say today the war ends. As right now, what do you think happens? You already screwed yourself. I'm talking about the Europeans. You're buying much more expensive goods from the United States of America through tariffs. You got the 15% tariffs imposed on you by the United States of America. You have to buy, potentially being blackmailed by the Americans with liquefied natural gas and oil and others, because you impose sanctions on Russia. So what are you going to do? So obviously your standard of living will decrease. You impose sanctions on other people's media because of propaganda, so you infringed also your liberties, freedom of the press. So you are losers from A to Z. Do you think now this guy say, okay, we had to do this, Phew, thank God. Now we're going to do something else. We're going to buy cheap oil from whom exactly? From the Russians? We're going to allow Russia Today, Sputnik, and everybody else to come over and tell us their lies? No. So it worked. Our economies will have a boom based on what? You want to impose sanctions now on India and China. China produces for you. What are you producing besides imbeciles and pink hair? Okay, but it's true. They will have to do that unless, I don't know, in 3 hours the whole leadership of the Soviet Union, of Russia, will be wiped and our weasels will be in charge. But the problem is you have the second echelon that might not follow orders and come to you in your office and say, you gave me an order to do what? Exactly. I'm on the phone with NATO. Boom, boom. I'm the new guy in town. Maybe that happens. Thank you very much for being with me again today. It's a possibility, but you can't cut off. Even if Putin goes, I think Russia was prepared already right here and right here not to fall for this pink hair, bowless West propaganda and idiocracy. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.